Hello everyone, my name is Ariel and today I am bringing you my April reading wrap-up. I don't know where I was going with that sentence. April was kind of a difficult month for me. I was in a bit of a reading slump and I have a feeling it was because a certain book that I DNF'd was to blame for it. Actually, I know it was to blame for it, but I don't want to make this too long because I feel like I can ramble when I do my wrap-ups, so I'm just gonna go ahead and get started. April was the month of the owls, so all of these books were for prompts. I was going for a ministry worker in the Department of Control and Regulation of Magical Creatures, and I managed to finish all of my prompts, but I was cutting it really close towards the end. But the first book that I read for my owls was The Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins. This was for my Care of Magical Creatures exam, and that was to read a book with a creature that has a beak on the cover, and obviously this has a bird with a beak. This was a reread for me. However, it's been since it came out that I had read this book. I really enjoyed it. I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. It was nice to be back into this world, well, as nice as you can for the contents of this. And I also did a watch of the movie, and I'm going to be doing that with all the other movies. So overall, I had a really fun experience reading this. It was very nostalgic, and it was also very well written. I was interested to see how Katniss was. She was a lot different than I remembered. She's very aloof as a character, and it almost comes off that way towards the reader as well. I was originally Team Gale. I don't know if that's even an important part, but I really liked Peeta in this book as well. He was probably actually my favorite character, thinking about it right now. Peeta is such a sweetheart. I love him to bits. So I read The Hunger Games. I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. It wasn't 5-star material for at least me, but it was very quick to get through. I was very entertained, and if you haven't read the series, I would recommend it, and I'm really looking forward to A Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. The next book that I picked up for my owls, I actually DNF'd, and that was The Merciful Crow by Margaret Owen. I'm probably gonna unhaul this book. It's over in a box with a bunch of other books that I'm gonna unhaul, which I might film an unhaul video. But this, I was just struggling really to connect with the characters and the writing style. If you don't know, The Merciful Crow follows this girl named Fi, and she is part of the Crow caste, and in the society there's a bunch of different casts that are all bird themed. She is at the lowest, and everyone treats the crows like dirt because they don't have any magical ability, and all of the other castes have some sort of ability. The highest being the Phoenix category, which are the royalty in this world. But there is this plague going on, and the crows are the only ones immune to it, so they are tasked with the duty of cleaning up the bodies so that, the entire system's not wiped out. They go to the castle because the prince and his guard have perished from this plague, but it turns out that they're faking their death because his stepmom, the now queen, was planning on murdering him, and so he wants the help of Fi and the other crows to get back his kingdom. And I don't know, the writing was really kind of hard to get into. It was ye old folklore kind of writing, if you know what I mean. And also the characters, I just couldn't connect with them. The one character who was the guard, I forget his name, I did like him, but Fi as a main character, she was okay. Nothing really that exciting or remarkable about her in my opinion. And then the prince, he kind of annoyed the crap out of me because he saw the world through rose-colored glasses, and while everyone in the society knows that the crows are the lowest of the lows and people go on hunting parties to try and kill the crows because everyone hates them and they treat them like shit and make it a sport basically to kill them. But he's no, we don't do that. You guys aren't treated that poorly, and literally he gets shown up every single time. And it just happens so many times. I'm boy, just shut your mouth. It's clear you don't know anything about how the world works. And he was just the innocent prince that apparently didn't know all these bad things were going on. I'm bull fucking shit. Everyone knows. Every time the crows were treated unfairly, he's but that's not right. And we're well, duh, this is literally your kingdom. Don't act like this isn't how it is. I don't know, he was just so flabbergasted at every injustice the crows encountered, which were every time they talk to another human being. And he's I can't believe this has been going on, and oh my god, it was just ridiculous. So I DNF'd it. I think I got it to 50% of the way, and I was even listening to the audiobook, and that still wasn't helping, and it was taking me almost 2 weeks to read the book, so I decided to move on, pick something else, and that was originally for my Charms exam. So instead I chose to read Saga Volume 1, which is a graphic novel by Brian K. Vaughan, and it is illustrated by, let me look it up, Fiona Staples. And I've seen this on BookTube, but I've also seen it, it's been out for a while, and I used to be really into graphic novels. I had never picked it up until now. I think it was on sale, so I got it. I read it for my terms exam, and I really liked it. This was for mostly white cover, which the background is white. And this follows basically two star-crossed lovers from these like warring planets, I think, and they fall in love and they have a baby, and now both of these armies are after them because they have betrayed their country, and they were like part of like the armies they were part of the armies that were fighting each other, so it's like treason and they have to find them and like kill this baby. So like there's a bunch of people that are out for this couple and their child, and I like it because it was narrated from the perspective of the child as if they were looking back on their life, and every time like there was like a new kind of chapter break or whatever, like he would leave off on some kind of like ominous note or like this, like, so it kept you wanting to read, and I thought it was really sweet. A lot of space titties, a lot of space penis, so if you're not into that, just be aware that you'll see your fair share of alien dicks. I don't know, I liked the story, so it's an adult graphic novel, so if you don't want to see that, pick something else, but I really liked it. It was a really fun story, and I'm excited to continue on reading the rest of the series. The next book that I read was actually part of a read-along that I participated in the beginning, but then after I hit my reading slump, I was just having trouble picking up the rest of the books, and I wanted to prioritize my owls because I wanted to be able to say that I finished them, and that way I'm just ready to go into the newts come August. But I read Into the Wild, which is the Warriors book number 1 in the first arc of the Warrior series, because there's a lot of Warriors books, and this is a middle grade series, and the main character, his name starts off as Rusty, and he is a house cat, and he ends up going past his fence one day and finds a bunch of like wild cats that are called warriors, and they're part of the Thunder Clan, and he kind of resents his life as being a house cat, and he wants to join the Warriors, and fortunately he hasn't been fixed yet, so he is allowed to join the Warriors because he still has his energeticness to him. So he becomes a warrior apprentice, and his new name is called Firepaw. This was really, really cute. I listened to the audiobook of this, and it was so freaking adorable. By the way, this read-along was hosted by Ginger at A Spice Read Books, which this is like her like favorite nostalgic series that she has like all of them. So she was hosting this read-along, and so I read it with her and a couple of other people that I will link them down below. So it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed discussing it with them, and I do want to continue on with the rest of the series. This was a lot of fun. Like I said, I listened to the audiobook, and the narrator was like the perfect person to narrate this book. He differentiated all of like the characters' voices, and my favorite character was Greypaw, who was also an apprentice and was Firepaw / Rusty's best friend. The narrator gave him like the most adorable like lisp, and he was like, "Feh." And I don't know, he just like warmed my soul. But it was a really sweet story. And so Rusty basically joins the Thunder Clan, and there's this wars over territory. Shadow Clan is trying, which is another like warrior clan, like a cat clan, is trying to take over like Thunder Clan's like hunting grounds, and there's a lot of murder and politics in it. There's a lot of action in it. So I think this is a very fun series. I can see why a lot of kids, at least at my store, are super into it, and it is addicting. It was really fast to get through. It is a lot of fun, and I would recommend, if you are at all interested in this series, go listen to the audiobook because you will fall in love. And yeah, I don't know if I actually rated this, but I would probably rate it a 4.5 out of 5 stars. It was a lot of fun, action-packed, and like I said, the characters were very memorable, and I enjoyed it a lot. And so thank you, Ginger, for hosting this read-along. I had a lot of fun. Sorry that I fell off towards the end of it. Well, actually, after the first book, I kind of like fell off because reading slump, and then I wanted to catch up on my owls because I wasted so much time on The Merciful Crow. But anyways, I did read Into the Wild, and it was a lot of fun, so I enjoyed it. The next book that I read was Rime of the Ancient Mariner, and this was for potions, which was to read something that was under 150 pages or 200 pages, I forget, but it was like read a short book. This was actually more of like an epic poem, and it's by Samuel Taylor Coolidge, and I was originally supposed to read this for a horror literature class that I took in college. I don't know what to make of it. I didn't rate it because it wasn't much of like a story. Okay, so basically there's this mariner, with this like glittering eye, and he comes across this like wedding guest who's about to like go to this wedding ceremony, and he stops this guy to tell him like this story that he experienced when he was out at sea. Him and his crew, they get lost in like the Arctic, and there's like this, I don't know if it's a crane, there's actually like it's a specific bird, but it's like blanking on the name of this bird right now. But the bird like leads them out of like this Arctic that they're trapped in, and the mariner for whatever reason like kills this bird because he like does this, like nature is like, he's like upset the gods basically because this bird was like this creature that led them out of this darkness, and then he goes and shoots it. And I guess it was like a metaphor on how like human beings just like ruin everything that's good. Like when it comes down to it, like that's pretty much what it's about. I really liked there was like a scene where it's like Death and I forget what the other character is, but they're like playing dice for the souls of the crewmen, and it just kind of reminded me of like the scene of Pirates of the Caribbean when they're trading like years under Davy Jones. So that was cool, reading about that part. But other than that, I don't really know what the point is, and like I don't know if you're planning on reading The Rime of the Ancient Mariner. He basically just relays this story to the wedding guest and then like pieces out and it's just like, okay. So yeah, I read that, and it was a thing that I did. I didn't give it a rating because I really didn't know how to rate it. I know it's like a classic piece of like literature that has importance and value to it, but you know, it's okay, I read it, so there's that. I read it for potions. And then for Defense Against the Dark Arts, which this was to read a book that is set by the coast or in water, and that I read Catching Fire by Suzanne Collins. I'm trying to reread the trilogy. I actually have not read Mockingjay or finished it to get prepared for A Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. So I read Catching Fire, and again I would give this, I think I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. A solid book, solid sequel. Originally I thought I would have liked this more than The Hunger Games, but they were actually kind of on the same level. I know a lot of people like Catching Fire more than The Hunger Games, and I will say it does have more interesting characters, and I liked, there was a couple of other twists that were thrown into it. I still think I can't choose on which one I like better now. Before I would have said Catching Fire, but now they're kind of equal to me. I loved seeing the strains in the characters' relationships, discussion like they don't know who to trust, and how they're gonna make it out again. If you haven't read The Hunger Games, I would recommend it. I can't say much about this one. I didn't even really talk about The Hunger Games, but I feel like you already know what it's about. But I would say give the series a shot if you haven't. Like I said, I'm really excited for A Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, and I'm glad I reread this. I also like read this in like 2 days along with The Hunger Games, so it was great for pulling me out of my reading slump. And then the next book that I read was for my Transfiguration prompt, and that was to read a book with shape-shifting, and I was originally going to reread A Clockwork Angel, but two of my favorite booktubers, Jamie from Leo Reads and Caitlin from Kate Literature, they started a new, what do you call it? Why am I blanking on the word? Book club. And so their book for April was The Wicked Fox by Kat Cho, and I had already owned this, so I figured it would be good to read a book that I've had on my shelves instead of rereading something. That way I can like get down on my physical TBR. And I was actually pleasantly surprised with this book because I feel like for the most part I've been seeing it get like 3-star average reviews, and like not many people, at least that I saw, really enjoyed it, but I actually really liked this. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars, maybe like almost a 4.5. And this is about our main character Mi-young and Ji-hoon. Mi-young saves Ji-hoon from is it a goblin? She saves him from, I think it's a goblin, or I'm blanking on a lot of things. But she is a gumiho, which is a 9-tailed fox, and gumihos steal like the souls of men to stay young and to live forever. And one night while Mi-young is hunting, she rescues Ji-hoon, and Mi-young, she doesn't like that she's a gumiho, or she doesn't like what she has to do to survive. So instead of like taking the souls of just like any man, she goes after like criminals and people who have committed like heinous crimes, so that way she kind of feels a little bit better about herself. Anyways, so Mi-young has just recently moved into town, and she goes to school and she sees Ji-hoon there, and they strike up a friendship, and he's really grateful that obviously she's saved his life, but she is trying to fly under the radar. She doesn't want to get attached to anyone because she has this big secret, but they end up becoming friends, and Mi-young reluctantly like becomes close with him, and it was just a really sweet story. It's not like an action-filled fantasy adventure. So if that's what you're looking for, it's not. It's very much like an understated kind of friendship and romance of these two. It does get really hyped towards the end, and that's typically where the action happens. But for the most part, it's Mi-young trying to deal with her personal battles and open up and become vulnerable. She has a complicated relationship with her mother, who is abusive basically, and it was also very sweet because you see how their family dynamics differ, whereas Ji-hoon, his mother gave him up when he was very young, and she has a new family and a new son, and she basically doesn't acknowledge Ji-hoon whatsoever, and Ji-hoon's father also left. So he's been living with his Halmoni, which is his grandmother, and they just have like the sweetest relationship ever. And so it was just a nice exploration of family and relationships, and then all the twists and all the action kind of happened at the end, which was also really well done. So I really liked this. I don't know why like people were kind of giving it, at least from what I saw, like somewhat negative reviews, because I really liked this. I can see how it's not what people might be expecting going into it, because like I said, it's not like some big fantasy adventure where they go on a quest and there's battles every 2 seconds, but I thought it was really sweet and very heartwarming, and I like cried like multiple times while reading this. So if a book can do that, then it's doing something right. So I really liked The Wicked Fox, and I'm excited for, I believe there's a second book coming out, so really looking forward to that as well. And then the next book that I read was for History of Magic, I believe. Yes, History of Magic, and that was to read a book with witches, and for this I chose The Witch's Boy by Kelly Barnhill. This is a middle grade book that is probably the most depressing middle grade book that I have ever read. Oh my god, there was so many deaths in this. More than any of the books, maybe it could rival The Hunger Games, honestly. Like, as far as, like, scene deaths. And, like, right off the bat, okay, so it follows our main character, Ned, and Ned used to have a twin brother named Tam. And everyone in town was always confused on which twin was who. And they would always say that there was, like, one twin that was always better, and he was always smarter and better looking, but they still couldn't tell which one was apart. But there was a mutual understanding around town that one twin was somehow better than the other. Anyways, Ned and Tam one day end up trying to make this raft to sail across the sea, just, you know, doing what kids do, trying to go on an adventure. But their raft ends up breaking, and their father has to save them, and he can only save Ned, and unfortunately Ned's brother Ted drowns. And everyone in town is under the assumption that the wrong twin died. Yeah, basically that's what he's lived with his entire life, is the entire town saying that the wrong person died. And here's Ned living with not only the loss of his twin, but all of this disappointment that he's the one that survived. Fucked up. And Ned's mother is the witch in this town. They call her Sister Witch, and she possesses magic, but she uses it for good. She only uses it to heal people or to do good deeds. And everyone also kind of shits on his mom because she is a witch until they need something fixed. Then they're like, oh my god, we love you, thank you so much. But then, like, as soon as, like, they, like, don't need her anymore, they basically treat Ned's family like trash. And one day, though, Ned's mother ends up saving the queen, so she gets invited to the palace to celebrate her, like thanking her, basically, so that's nice at least. But Ned's mother cannot take her magic with her. She has to, like, keep it contained. So while his mom's away, there is this group of bandits that try and steal his mother's magic. And the lead bandit is the father of our other main character, whose name is Anya, I believe is how you say it. She has also suffered a loss because her mother has died, and her family unit used to be really nice and everyone helped each other out. It turns out that her father was a bandit before he got married, and now that their mother has died, he's gone back to his life of banditry, and he's just kind of an awful person and is very possessed with this need for power and for magic. And so Anya goes to, like, stop her father. Meanwhile, the bandit is trying to steal Ned's magic, and Ned, I don't know, so they all cross paths. I don't want to say too much, but this is very dark. Very, very dark. I was surprised about everything that goes on in here. So death, there's also, like, animal deaths in this book, and that was kind of jarring. So I was, yeah, just really surprised and overwhelmed by how horrific some of the things were. I mean, at least for a middle grade. But that being said, I enjoyed it. It was just very surprising. depressing, but yeah, definitely for not like the lighthearted kids whatsoever. I know Kelly Barnhill wrote The Girl Who Drank the Moon, and so I'm excited to read the rest of her books because I thought the writing was very beautiful and well done. If anything, I felt the ending was a little bit rushed. And it was kind of, that was like the one thing that I was like not too crazy about, was how everything ended and how we all became happily ever after again. But other than that, I thought it was a really good book and I would probably reread it, and I would recommend it to anyone who's possibly interested. Just know that it's not going to be like a fun time. And lastly, the book that I read for an extra prompt for dragon taming. That was basically so I have the ability to train dragons. It wasn't necessary for my career, but it was something that I wanted to do. And anyways, I'm so glad that I read this book because I'm gonna say right now, probably right at this point, it's my favorite book that I've read so far this year. And that was Damsel by Elena K. Arnold. God, I love this book so much, you guys. You have no idea. I read this in a day, in like 2 sittings. I could not put it down. This is not for the faint of heart either. There is a lot of trigger warnings in this. I'm just gonna say that right off the bat. As much as I would love everyone to read this book, I know it has like mediocre ratings on Goodreads, but I think it's because people didn't anticipate like how dark that this book is as well. This is a twist on your fairy tale of a girl being rescued from the tower. There is this prince called Prince Emery, and for as long as anyone can remember, it has been the sole duty for a prince in order to become king. He needs to scale this tower and rescue a damsel from a dragon. It's told from the main character Amma's perspective, and so she wakes up after being rescued and she's just kind of thrown into this life that this is your role. You have to get married to me, you have to be my wife, and I rescued you. And she cannot remember anything from before she was, you know, stuck in this tower. She has no memory of her previous life or her family, and she's just basically kind of used as like a tool in order for him to become king. And it's so difficult because she has this kind of innocence and wonder about like this world, because she doesn't remember anything about her life and she's confused, and she wants to trust this person who says that he's rescued her, but it's just a crazy ride. Know that there, like I said, I would advise you to go looking into the trigger warnings if you really are, you know, scared of that kind of thing. This book will give you all of the emotions. It's not happy. It will infuriate you, as it should. But I also felt very powerful while reading this book, especially the end. You'll want to throw it, you'll get mad, you'll get sad, and you should. And I think it affected me so viscerally that I can't imagine not giving it 5 stars. The ending, the twists, the symbolism. It's a feminist, basically a feminist like fairy tale. That's all I can really say. I would love it if you read it. I would want everyone to read this, but I know it's not for everyone. And my favorite thing about this now is like looking at the cover. It just says so much about what goes on in the story. It was an instant 5 out of 5 stars. Probably my favorite book of the year. I don't know what could top it at this point. I just remember after I put it down, I was like pacing my room. I was like feeling everything. I didn't know what to do with myself. And it's been a while since a book like that has affected me. And I said the last book that really got to me that way was the first time that I read Scythe. It was, and Scythe is, the Arc of the Scythe is like one of my all-time favorite series now. So it was very powerful, very moving, emotional. I'm so glad that I decided to read it and pick it up, because now I can say without a doubt, favorite book. 5 out of 5 stars. Recommend it 100%, but just look into it if you are triggered by certain things. Oh my god, okay. So these are all the books that I read this month. I mean, plus the audiobook of Into the Wild and Rime of the Ancient Mariner. And is there another thing that's not pictured here? I forget. Oh, Saga. Couldn't find where I put it, so. But yeah, these are all the books that I read in April. I'm happy that I accomplished my owls. And yeah, let me know what you guys read in the month of April. If you participated in the owls and what career you were going for, I would love to hear it. And if you've read any of these books, I would also love to hear your opinions on them as well. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and hopefully I will see you guys next time.